Okay, first reader is Troy.
Hey, Dennis, turn that down just a little bit. It's booming a little bit.
Yeah, how do we turn this
That's a
down?
good
It's
question.
on it's on the system. You got to go to this.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to.
Yeah, but get the techno file up there. We'll be good. Great job.
Oh, he's such a wonderful player.
You're good.
Such a wonderful.
I don't think they have the staff down here. There it is.
Hey, who found this? I lost it.
Astronaut, yeah.
I can't believe it.
Maybe you just fell out of your book. Give it a test. Give it a test.
Turn down a little bit.
Okay, is this better?
That's better.
All right.
Yeah, it's not,
Okay.
it's not booming now.
And each poem, we ask you to keep it to about 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay. Last week we could go for like 15 minutes or a month.
Wow. All right. This will be way shorter than 2 to 3 minutes, I will tell you that.
Okay.
All right.
Give it to the next one.
I'll do what I can.
You do it.
This is my first reading, so let's see what happens.
You bet.
You got it, buddy.
The shade in her eyes was certain to be the very end of me. Silence will be there for me at the denouement. 'Tis why it would be. Never spoke or sang a word, yet she could only hear the world in certain clearness. Tell me now that I, in my tender frailty, will not find her here. Where will I now seek, like a lantern in the night, the severance so near?
All right, thank you. And again, we welcome new readers, old readers, intermediate readers, and crazy junior high school readers like our next reader, Alexander from Lewiston.
I teach 6th grade, that's why I said that.
There we go.
First off, I have 2 Lewiston poems, so two for the city. First one's about the kids, second one's more about the streets. 2 Lewiston poems. It's pretty high. Just like a professional. All right. Lewiston kids like smashed bricks by the Androscoggin. Tough, jagged, hardened, blown to bits. See the world as glass, something to smash for their own amusement. Wake up to a cold bowl of neglect or another set of sirens echoing through the trash-filled alleys. Lewiston kids who have never seen the ocean, never smelt a forest pine, sit inside waiting for school to start. Here's my second one. Lewiston streets like a cheese grater stuffed with trash. Needles, garbage, a maniacal laugh escapes from around the church. Board up the businesses and give the stoops to those who come. Walk through the rotting corpse of civic pride. Ask others why it is like this. Bait students with Birkenstocks and 2 hands on their mug. Somali children barefoot sharing a soccer ball covered in mud. All ground and shredded like a pile of lettuce. This one's called Burying Abigail. We buried the cat in Bridgeton because the cremation fee was too excessive. Wesley started yelling in the clinic, saying it was ridiculous playing on vulnerable emotions that way with a price tag. We dug a cat-sized hole and adorned it with pieces of ancient rock wall from iron settlers. sprinkled wild purple flowers and the crowns of acorns around the sepulchre. To pet her white fur, her distinct Turkish markings, was the final chapter. She had left her body. We each took a spadeful of soil, drank a Leinenkugel, and stared off past the pines at the distant mountains. I heard a pine cone fall. Sometimes it's better to say nothing, just smoke a joint with each other and feel emotions. We started a fire by his mother's cross and talk about how maybe nothing is lost. She just slid back into the mountain air, always to be around us. Wes held her as she got her final shot. He said it was better than watching her suffer. But as her yellow eyes fell shut, he almost screamed stop. This one's kind of quick. Fathers of America, hug your daughters. It may seem like a lifetime, but really you only get one chance. For soon she may run into the arms of another. Some boy never kissed by his mother, who wears anger like denim pants. And then here's 3 poems in Maine I dreamed of. I nailed a blue lobster onto Senator Collins' door. A simple note, don't boil us anymore. The water was tepid, but now we're heading for madness in a rolling boil. I poured maple syrup on the grave of E.B. White. He granted me visions of geese and field mice, helping hurt children by dangerous farm equipment. He said, in the writer's mind, there is treasure more valuable than all the tourmaline in Maine. I asked, do girls like Fern exist anymore? He said he was sure of it. I put blueberries in the eyes of the French dead. They smiled wide and said, now I can finally rest.
Great, thank you, Alexander. I love how he reminds us that poetry can be about the imagination.
Yeah, I got lots
Yeah, those last 3 were really super. Our next reader is Jenny.
Well, you've had some Lewiston poems. This is a Portland poem.
Okay.
But it could be any suburb, really. It could just as easily be Lewiston. It's called Watching the Little Sisters. The teenage boys have gone to a backyard somewhere in the neighborhood to hang out behind a garage, pass around a joint. And now I see their little sisters take a turn at the basketball hoop on the sidewalk. 5th graders in shorts or old leggings starting to climb above their thin ankles. T-shirts still printed with unicorns, still flat across their chests. To watch them is to travel back in time, before the uniform of gender fell across my shoulders, before the weight of breasts and male gaze boxed out freedom even more than the shut pluck of childhood, before bleeding and the inescapable decades to come of decisions wrapped up in owning a grown woman's body. There are so many ways of being fouled. I never see them alone. They huddle in pairs or groups of 3 or 4. I hear their high voices chattering, their laughter before the basketball box on asphalt. They practice defense, as women must, dodging side to side to block a shot. They jump high in front of the girl with the ball, flinging their arms up into the air, T-shirts riding up over their bare bellies. I grew up in England, as you can probably hear from the accent.
No way.
No, really? What a
No
surprise.
way.
And more specifically, that's the Portland accent for you. And more specifically, I grew up in Yorkshire, which of course, as everybody knows, is God's own country.
Of course.
Anyway, this poem is called The Cleveland Hills, which are in North Yorkshire. Who should know eternity better than hills that live in geologic time? North Yorkshire has stored secrets, sea creatures, since the Jurassic. Young green dales and cowslip meadows run now where mile-high ice sheets once groaned and ground, and dry stone walls enclose more sheep than people. The hills watch stone circles, castles and abbeys rise then ruin. Walk the moors from Helmsley to Revo on Roman causeways, see stones tumbled away, remains of Gothic arches like decayed teeth. An iron wind rushes over treeless scarps, through crooked thorn bushes bent to its will, over purple heather scrub, the rippled skin of crabgrass, and buffets stoic sheep that wait for feed while the slaughter truck chugs along the road. In a gnat bite of time, I picnicked on the moors by a packhorse bridge over a peat-brown stream. Father lit the primer stove to boil water for tea. Mother spread a picnic cloth while I searched in the beck for fossils, then lay back in the heather under clear sky and lark song as if I were growing out of the earth.
So British.
This is the Maine poem, just to bring us back to Maine. And it's a spring poem, just to take you back a few months. It's called That One Day. Every spring, there's that one day when buds on maples lining my street burst into leaf, and blossom explodes pink as summer scoops of cherry garcia against a wild Maine lupin sky. I pick fiddleheads and the first asparagus and lift my face sunward like Vincent in Arles in the hospital orchard, painting for his newborn nephew sprig after sprig of almond blossom that looks, yes, like the blossom I see now, riot of pink and blue and white and that hard clear blue beyond. And I know that joy's a climber along a knife-edge ridge towards a summit where the air's too thin to stay for long. Too much sun can tip you into a cornfield where crows hover and wait. So I stare up and soak it in while April winds whips around me, a froth of scattered petals already torn from the tree.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Now, Jenny, you have 2 books from Moon Pie Press, correct?
One.
And what's the name?
I've got the manuscript out at the moment, but
Okay.
it depends if it's up or picks it up or not.
Now, what's the title of your Moon Pie book?
It's called Sending Betty Davis to the Plumber.
Sending Betty Davis to the Plumber. Yes. So, need we say more? Thank you, Jenny. All right, our next reader is Sam, a regular and a growing crowd favorite. He also has a wonderful book. He also has a wonderful book that he can tell you about and plug.
I usually just read from that book, but I have some new material tonight.
Attaboy.
All right, this one's called I Spilled Myself All Over Coffee. I spilled myself all over coffee, waking up inside a dream. The street crosses over me. Bricks of cobblestone trip over my toes. The ground parades as I celebrate failures. A storm drain swallows everything outside a cup. I disagree with facts. A new stillness runs inside. My heart stimulates caffeine. Looking at this shirt on my stain, I pour into you whatever I have left. This one's called Don't Be Jealous. In my heart, I've built Mount Rushmore, and it's just your face 4 times. And as for her, well, hers is nowhere to be found. Not even on any of the tourists who frequent to admire the 4 specimens. The idea of you, the memory of you, the dream of you, and the real you. I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's only so much room in there, and I promise it's already all dedicated to you.
That's cute.
This one's called At Dusk. We agree elixir is a playful synonym for cocktail. As we concoct some, a stray cat pounces on fireflies, nature's laser pointer. A paradox like gluten-free crackers. On a charcuterie board, entertaining guests. In the living room. It's game night and our friends are waiting, but I can't seem to stop distracting you in the kitchen. Simultaneously grateful for company and wishing we were alone. The bitters complement the whiskey, a feline purrs on the fence. We agree lightning bug is an old-fashioned synonym for firefly. But our friends are waiting and the charcuterie can only distract them for so long. I love you, I say, so shall we entertain? Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. The new stuff is, wow. I can tell you studied with Charles Simic, right? Yeah, humor and heart. Wow, thank you. Our next reader is Michelle, another regular of the Third Thursday. And the most recent winner of Barrow Street's, what is it, Michelle? She's very humble. She just won a major award. I'll let her tell you about it. Hey, before I forget, here's, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to read this one so we can get to the main event. Okay, this is, are we going to read this poem? This is called Bad Plants. And it's a sonnet. It's after Gwendolyn Brooks' sonnet ballad, uses and lines from her poem, the sonnet ballad, and it's after a article in the Times about the dual history of poisonous flowers and how they are both dangerous and food. Bad plants. Who do I have to pluck to get a shred of happiness? Eve sought a little treat, not a tempest. Generals we in a war of harm and heal, a floriarchy where beauty spikes my drink. Guess, narcotic red or trade my love for bread red. But what's it good for, the script convulsing on a limb, if you can't unchariot? More, says castor bean, more lemon ferment. Sun tugs you toward a new mouth. Be a lady and a deadly nightshade, like belladonna, door to a veil of tears. Unsoil your fuchsia self with a bit of untrue juice. These two worlds, what a conspiracy. I reach the courtyard as a falsehood, hemlocked by Queen Anne's lace. Strange how sleep and sleigh live in sweet proximity. They lift the sky, a sort of reveille. It cures my heart, but that you rattle me. Why change to live in one when I am of them both? Yes, angel's trumpet. Yes, devil's breath. Yes, wail our wild heads with deadly happiness. All right, so I am stealthily here to introduce Julia Bouwsma, and I'm honored and pleased to do so. I was first introduced to Julia's work through her poetry collection, Midden. It's her second collection of poetry and her second to win a Maid Literary Award. It is a book that is about Malaga Island, kind of, but I hesitate to say it is about Malaga Island. It is about many things, but clearly that is the underpinning of this collection, is the history of Malaga Island. If you're a Maine person, you would know a little bit about that and its sort of fraught and painful history that for years we really didn't talk about in the state, and that has changed a bit. So this is a version, Julia has said, of its history, this book. It is a stunning collection. It is a collection of poems of witness. It is a complicated story that is told with exceptional humanity. I attended readings when this book had first come out when Julia was reading from her book. And I was in these places, libraries, filled with people that found this book touching and personal to them. You could tell from the way they were asking questions and telling anecdotes. They were people that were like me, interested in the story of Malaga Island. They were people who had relatives that had lived on Malaga Island. And they found this book so touching. It was a truth to them, it was important to them. And I know that it was because of the content of the poems. I also know it was, as a poet, that it was because of the dedication to the craft of the poetry that was woven into the content of the poems. It wouldn't have been the collection that it was without that craft. It was written with restraint and intelligence and sensitivity, and it is an achievement of the book. I have a little quote from Julia about those poems. I hope that you're going to hear a little, maybe, of them tonight. She says, it was clear to me that then and now that it was, I'm sorry, I can only say these poems are meant to live in the space between what is known and what is unknown, to speak both of the place from where they came and the distance from which they were written. And that's a notion to me that I think is interesting because of the mystery of those poems and the limits of poems of history and poems of place. I thought then and think now that it might be the way to tell that story is through poetry. And I know that Julia is the one to have done it. Julia is a poet, homesteader, editor, teacher. She's currently the library director for the Webster Library in Kingfield. She lives off the grid there in Western Maine. Among her many honors are numerous residency fellowships, and in addition to Midden, her book, Work by Bloodlight, which won the Cider Press Award. The book award, no easy task, and is also a Maine Literary Award winner. And itself is a hauntingly beautiful book. So when we heard that Julia was reading tonight, we had a lot of elated poets that are probably here. I know we've upped our game because she's here tonight. So we're so honored to have her at our monthly celebration of poetry and poetry adjacent things. So warm welcome to our current and 6th Poet Laureate of Maine, Julia Bouwsma.
Michelle, thank you. I think that might be the most moving and beautiful introduction I've ever gotten. Thank you. Bring this down just a little bit because I have a tendency to be loud. I thought that I would read a couple poems for you from my first book, Work by Bloodlight, and then one or two from Midden, and then a few new ones from a manuscript that maybe we'll find a publisher one day. Who knows, right? These things are not easy. But we'll start with a couple from Work by Bloodlight. I love to start, for some reason, I love to start readings with the last poem in this book, because it's a love poem. For my partner of 23 years, but also for the land that we homestead. Land and body. Here, we have survived another year. Take this bounty, our love, the resistance we feel between our teeth as seeds crack and extend their pale finger selves into paper towel, then earth, buried alive so they may grow into a green billowing we will eat as a new promise, saute in garlic, olive oil, feed to one another as if to say, there is no distance between taking and giving. A ritual of regret carried out beside the deer head on the porch, its skin flaked to sodden leather, dark as leaf mulch. And my hands have traced the pale trifold stitching of skull. And I have been in mud today. I have cleaned up shit, clotted through boxes of frozen chicken, leg after leg split and stacked like cordwood into the box. Splintered bone, flesh skin pink, a cold meat. And your hands have set the cinder blocks for a woodshed, have split the kindling, have dug the grave for the dog who lies rotting against ledge rock 4 feet down in a frost heave, waiting until the irises spread up over his brindled, poisoned bloom, his cancer-chewed paw, his canine shining white as the moon that slips naked to run against our snow-spread lawn as we stand in front of the door, your arms folding me into you until I feel it, our hardness, the bicep and bruise of all the sap buckets we have lifted and poured, every bag of grain hauled, bale of hay thrown, animals we have mended and killed, tasted, tricked to the slaughter, every potato forked from the ground, each nail pounded, the boards above and below us, how all of it binds us, grafts us, one into the other, our freshly harrowed skin. Yeah, I mean, it's a love poem in my mind, right? But it's not. I had somebody email me the other day. It's the sweetest. You get the. I've been getting the coolest but most bizarre emails through my website, and it was a man in Michigan, no, in Wisconsin, who somehow found me, and he's emailing poets all over the country because he wants to put together a collection of love poems for his wife for their anniversary, which is like,
So cute.
unless this is a weird fishing scheme, I don't know, but it seemed really cool.
Nobody's
And
fishing
he's like,
poets.
you could send me one of yours or you could recommend one. I'm like, oh, I don't think you're going to want one of mine. I'm definitely going to have to recommend someone else's.
Mine's chopping up chickens.
Yeah, I mean, I need them, but there's all somehow blood in them. I don't know. So on that note, this is a poem about the time I shot a weasel out of my hen house. We are just 3 mouths. A rifle on my shoulder, I am in the hen house again. The scream is one pitch too high for human. The weasel is a white scarf at her throat. Pas de deux, a feather and fur I watch through my gun sight. Empty metal eye, inches from its collar of snow. Blast that shatters any dance. The weasel falls back, starts to rise, as if it were easy, one motion, no difference between the hen's blood in its mouth and the red hole spreading its ribs. I step on it hard, the flash of black eyes. It claws, bites my boot. We are 3 bodies in soiled pine shavings, 3 mouths. The weasel winces, eyes close, open, limbs stretch into that last hard act of breath. The second bullet slips, trembling from my hand. I drop the gun hard once, twice, but the weasel's elegant neck won't snap. I find the bullet, reload, press into the pink-white fold of ear, pull, gunpowder and sawdust, a soft head slap. I reach down to grasp what I have done. I lift it by the tail. homesteading comes with some really brutal days sometimes, and poetry is an outlet for me in that, you know. When I wrote that, when that happened, I remember calling my mother the next day and telling her this, and she goes, "Oh, Julia, please tell me you're not going to write a poem about that." You know, I already started. I don't, you know, I need the poems, right? Those are the redemption from those kind of moments. So I'll read two poems from Midden. This one is called Interview with the Dead. Who were you then? And instantly the tongue becomes the prism of fracture, land of washed green light, ferns, wild hops, hemlock, lichen skinning the granite outcrops. And instantly the tongue becomes a well, a stone cast into memories falling. When there's no one left to name the helix of departure unfurling inside you, wear silence as a tattered shirt, a stain of torn buttons. We carried it in our spines, and anyone could see it when we walked. And instantly the tongue turns to salt, white film and blanch, for not even the tongue can taste what came before salt. How do you remember your island? As stone fingers spread an octave into the sea, as salt brands ankles and red mud heels callous to clay, as dreams in which we still pick blackberries, as brambles scratch a map into our skin, as we thread the fish hook, pull the line taut, as a catch of blood in the back of the throat, as fingers tying a knot. How did you leave? Our houses became our bodies. We lashed ourselves to rafts. Our bodies became boats. Some left as cargo in boats, boxes. We wept or did not weep until home became the rubble between our teeth, the thing one cannot bite for fear of breaking. Then we were a people sculpted of wind, and when we left, we scattered as breath, lingered as breath. Then we were a people carved of gravel and dust, and we left as the land, stripped from the land, carrying our hearts in our fists. Sorry, there's two more sections. I know, it's a problem with that one. It could have ended there, but there are two more little sections. Where did you go? To hallways of sweat and bleach, to white walls and locked doors, to brass bed frames and the endless folding of sheets, to the thin lips of strangers at the market, to back doors of summer mansions, to mud flats and shanty camps, to clusters of islands too tiny to name, to houses rebuilt with the same old boards, but smaller this time, and the windows all in the wrong place. What did you leave behind? Our arms spread out around it all until our hands could not meet our hands. And I was only planning to read one from it because that one was long. But then Michelle's beautiful attention to this book made me think that I should read a second one. So now I'm trying really fast to figure out which one it should be.
Suckerfish.
I could read Suckerfish, yeah. Let's find it.
Yeah, this is a beautiful poem.
So this is a poem. When the Marx family, the entire Marx family was sent to the main school for the feeble-minded. There were 9 residents of Malaga who were sent there, including the entire Marx family and, oops, it's the wrong poem. And there were, the dormitories were separated. There was a men's dormitory and a women's dormitory. So this is written in the voice of Lizzie Marx, who had a very young son. And when she arrived, she and her son were separated. And as far as I know, they both died at the main school for the feeble-minded. And as far as I know, they never had contact again. So when this book came out in 2018 and I started reading this poem, it was a moment for me where I realized that I had not written a book about history. I had written a book about our present moment because of, I was reading this book as we were having conversations about children being separated from their families, which of course they still are at the border. A suckerfish. My baby was a suckerfish right from the start, a fat slap and slurp, a thrash in the net of my belly, and how thin, how patched the net. That summer I stumbled so full of him each morning down to the shore, nausea, a thundercloud about to split as I heaved into the ocean, jacksmouths gathering to bite my toes, puked last night's potato scraps into the sea, drooling, lifted my skirts, not caring who could see, and thought to myself, Lizzie, you've got yourself a suckerfish inside of you. He'll eat you whole if it's the only way out. Thick foot, hard in the gut, and I thought, he's a fighter, sure as dawn. And how happy I was then, knowing my baby would fight, even with a hook in his gape-hungry jaws. Yes, and he came out like that too, flopping and red, latched straight on with his fleshy lips, till that day they drove us from our house, loaded us into the boats. The carriage steered us into the bleach-cold hall, said, women go left, men go right. Then I knew the line was about to snap. A pair of white hands plucked him off my breast. I sagged down, torn, unfurled, gill slit, and my sweet William, he just puckered his mouth. So I read a few new poems. One of the things that I, these poems are mostly personal in this new collection, but a lot of them, they come out of, there's sort of an organic evolution after writing Midden, where there were certain things that I felt I needed to explore and interrogate in my own history. So there's sort of a running theme in this book about, epigenetic memory and inherited trauma. And so one of the things that happened when I was writing Midden, one of the points that sort of helped me write that book was recognizing some familiar patterns of silence that and erasure that exist in my own family history. So this poem is called Point of Origin. Discussing the problem of origins with my mother on the telephone again, I watched the frozen lake extend beneath the window panes. A frozen lake recalls blank poster board, as in grade school, half the family tree wizened white, after I came home asking nationalities, countries of origin, and my mother said, just put Jewish. And I said, Jewish is not a country. So she tried to tell me what she knew, which amounted to something like snow falling in a forest that spanned all the way from Austria to Lithuania or Estonia or Russia. A forest marked by sudden uneven clearings called fields where bodies might be found. A dark forest pocked by villages no one wanted to remember the names of, so they forgot them, or in any event forgot to tell their children, as perhaps they forgot even their own names, stilled and severed until it became impossible to trace. One name found on a ship's manifest, another claimed at entry, a stranger inside a familiar, a matryoshka we don't speak of until it's too late. The ones who know, dead and gone, the documents scattered and opaque. Now my mother speaks of research, suggests a distant relative who might know more. But like the crusted snow that coats this lake, erasure has become a skin. Inside me, an expanse of ice extends, and below that ice a fish swims slow and dark, scaling figure eights between the stones. In winter, a lake transforms to field. Between pickup trucks and fishing shacks, a lone figure paces. I cannot see the fish, and yet I know it's there, beneath this makeshift ground. Another thing that I was thinking about, in writing Midden, and then continued to think about afterward, was this idea of land. So while I was writing Midden, I was thinking about my deep connection to the land that I live on at Homestead. But in the book, and this is one, I knew that I couldn't write this book without making mistakes. And so one of the book mistakes that I know that I've made in the book is at times to use a sort of shorthand and refer to it as my land. Because of course, it's all stolen land, and land ownership is a fallacy, So this is a poem about that, and also the history of Malay Hill, where I live. After we wound the land to maps, better stewardship than ownership, but this wooded hill has never needed anyone. Without us, it stretched its green flanks feral until blackberry canes cracked under their own weight. Deer tramped switchback tunnels through the undergrowth. Columbine erupted purple and pink-white beneath sugar maples. Without us, the hill's scars turned porous. August aster bottle brushed from cellar holes. A stand of ash rose from a single stump. Snakes studded themselves into the splicing silences of the stone walls and slept. Without us, the stories grew moss and sprouted saplings like an erratic boulder from its hulking granite back. And likely the hill preferred this, for it had never needed us here to hear or tell of the seven-sided pole barn filled with its 7 years of trash, the baby diapers and propane tanks that shot shrapnel when the man before us set it ablaze. Nor did it need the story of the DEA helicopter sent to arrest the man before him, man of shotgun and wild rumors, of holes all over the front lawn where the pot plants grew and where we still now sometimes stumble carrying our buckets. No, The land didn't need the herd of cows before him either, or the family they belonged to, the ones who built this rotting cabin, who dug septic and well, and then one day just up and disappeared. Though that woman came back once in a dusty white minivan, driven by her daughter, came to see one last time her lost home, and told to me, through plastic oxygen tubes from the car window, of a time when this whole hillside rolled with wheat, sheep, fields, and the hubris of a farmer who scrambled to gather his hay as thunderclouds bore down upon him, how once the last bale was in, he shook his fist at the sky in triumph, and the sky replied a pitchfork of lightning right into the roof of his barn. So fire. So all those fields regrew to woods. So new scrub for the partridge. So no trace of the now vanished schoolhouse. Nothing left of the sawmill but a clodstone dam and a swamp of dank leaves. Just the headstones remain, mildew and algae on marble, children buried before their parents. Just the rustic gate, the tree-bent chain link. The rest left home at first opportunity, drawn by the heady violence of opportunity. Abandoned this hill to a new violence of boundary pins and parceling out. And now I am here, an unwanted steward, unneeded witness. I am here, and this topography has made a debt of me. The debt began before we ever arrived. Perhaps the debt began when someone followed a deer through the woods on the way to the river. Or perhaps, no. Or perhaps when the mountains first churned with glacial debris. Certainly the debt began when someone wrote their name on a property map, a deed. By the time we arrived, adolescent on the solipsistic romance of our own manifest destiny, believing we could make our own end, glowing from the flickering light of flame-colored leaves, we already knew. The wound was us. It lodged in our throats. It grew under our tongues, moss to a slope, lily of the valley to a grave, until we could no longer discern the green of the hill from the skin of our hands. Each spring weeps its spring runoff, sugars the trees with tears, but the wound remains. The wound festers violet and lilac. It swells a bloat pond of summer warbling. It lacerates a hot fist of fall color with the urgency of an extinction burst. And yet the land lumbers on, its low dirge of survival and pine pitch stitching us, lichen to lesion, life to ligament, rock to rib. Sorry about that. This is why double-sided printing is very dangerous. I have three more? Is three more? Do we have enough time for three more? I can do fewer. Yeah, we'll just do, I know, I'll get rid of this. This is a poem for my grandmother. This is an elegy that I wrote. She passed away in 2017, but I wrote this, during the first year of pandemic, because it felt to me like we were trapped inside a moment of collective, extended elegy. Elegy for my grandmother in the form of a cactus. The way each linked lobe of your cactus swallows all the green from the one before it reminds me of that movie about the human centipede, and how appalled you would have been to know such a film exists. Though you are no stranger to the macabre, you who used to warn me not to drink tea too much, or my stomach would swell red, you said, citing the story of that man with the shotgun wound in his abdomen, how he became a medical curiosity for the dark, deep hole in him through which the world could suddenly view the innermost sanctum of a human body, which was a long way you had of saying, it matters what we put inside ourselves. I have put so many things inside myself I should not have. Smoke of all sorts, whiskey, sorrow, pennies, bottomless guilt, river stones, a crusty work glove pulled off with my teeth. I even licked a Burmese python once. I list the contraband of my body to myself as I eat nachos or frozen French fries off your blue dinner plates, counting the indulgences I imagine you would not have approved. And here I am now, inserting a gross horror movie reference into a poem about your absence. A poem I began writing only because I wanted you to know. Your cactus is flowering again, as it has 4 years now. Fuchsia flames licking out from the maw of each final green, I don't know what to call it, not a leaf, but a section of stem pressed flat until, yes, it erupts into firework, a tongue or tail of brightness uncurling into this winter room. I wanted you to know. It flowered the night you died. It flowered because I told it to. You in your hospital bed and me not there. And now, I force it unconsciously each year, forget to water for months, then soak it with the thawed remains of yesterday's chicken pail. It's an Easter cactus, really. I wanted you to know. I looked it up on a diagram today. The 3 shapes of lobe, but yours is willful, peculiar, blooms only in late January, blooms only for you, which is fitting, since we don't believe in resurrection, you or I. Just another flattened green segment each year, another stubborn explosion of beauty at the end of our grief. And I'm going to end with a request from Dennis for my violin poem. So this is a poem that was inspired by watching a YouTube video where a professional violinist is undergoing brain surgery. They wanted to make sure the tumor was abutting the part of her brain that would affect her hand, and they wanted to make sure she'd still be able to play the violin. So they not only did it while she was awake, but they had her playing the violin while they were doing surgery so they could tell if they were getting too close. So I watched that video like 5 times, and then I wrote this poem. What will you do at the end of the world? When I watch the video where the violinist plays as surgeons cut the cancer from her brain, my first impulse is to descend into metaphor, to imagine the plaintive cry of her violin as a singular silvery thread that leads the surgeons sublimely, tremulously through the Minotaur's maze, so they can extract the tumor abutting the lobe that controls her left hand, so they can navigate the fleshy labyrinthine folds and electric shocks that make a human mind. When I watch her bow graze the ventilator tube again and again, I want to recall the old story of Nero playing as Rome burned, which is supposed to be a story about callous cruelty and ineffectual leadership, but which fails to hold up under historic scrutiny for many reasons, including that the violin was not invented until the 11th century. Still, the fable lends him more humanity than not. The notion that there was music inside him, even if it took 6 days of burning to fan it out. A music so powerful it forced itself to escape his tyrant's mouth. If art is only pleasure, Nero's act is selfish, loathsome. But if art is survival, a violent siren might morph to beacon against the smoky air. I keep asking my poems what the world needs from me in these days of quickening dread, of burgeoning conflagration, what they want me to do. In the comments section below the hospital video, no one can agree on what they're seeing. Creepy, incredible, horrifying, beautiful. Afterward, the violinist recalls, I kept thinking, get out of my way. I need to play louder. Thank you.
Okay, Julia does have copies of both her books, so feel free at any time to come down and exchange money. We are going to have about 4 or 5 more poets, okay? So do stick with us. We still have some wonderful poets signed up. Our next poet is Mark Sweetum from Hebron. He's the epic poet. Now, he's also going to be reading tomorrow night, right, at the Allen Day Community Garden in Norway, Maine. Okay? And I believe he's going to be reading under, what is it, the big lean-to, Peter? Peter, what do you call that thing by the pizza? It's a covered, there's a big covered gazebo picnic area, so if it rains, in other words, it's still worth your while to show up and listen to Mark and Lisa Moore and Mikael Ann Haig and I think one other poet. So here is Mark.
Love you, Mark!
Your sonnet is incredible.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you, Julia, for that. Thank you, Julia, for that. I really loved it. I think the duty of the poet is not just to say things beautifully about beautiful things, but to say terrible things beautifully. And I think you did that as well. I think it's important. We got to have the whole story. In the void, a pact was made with invisible light, and stirring with water and dust of the earth, what we know as color was first given birth. If I could read the morning like a painter, seeing her world being formed in the void between brush and canvas, I too would hatch with abandon over the flat wash of modernity, mocking reality with megabytes, and scumble the base of industrial uniformity with textures of a wind-tossed marsh, and high tides of color would swell and slough off the cynicism of inevitability. I would wait where the river walks through the places we know to discover how she paints impasto, water and wind, mimicking the medley of each moment in the other, as if the river were a womb conceiving, and the cirrus and cumulus and bowers above were merely sisters and brothers breaching before their monoamniotic twins in utero below. I would dwell in Middle Earth, where the sky is falling between us and the solar flare, buffering the bruising rays to an orange, purple, and gray epidermis, filtering the void to a faraway blue ciliated with shrubberies and mountains' majesties, and storm layers sifting down, sustain a tenuous, subcutaneous, quick, clinging to a basalt lamina beneath. And with the last light of the evening of every La Luna Nueva, I would stand on the shore and learn prayers and a rosary of confessions to a grandchild, and omens for Ozymandias from the high tide of a new moon washing my feet. Cold waters from beneath a setting sun, lush with the remains of innumerable creatures, each one encapsulating incandescent aliens from the shores of that distant flaming globe, eternal entities intent on inhabiting this world. Spirits become flesh, their vitality vitiated by every variety whose volume becomes voluptuous and teeming. Touching the toes, they tarry in that moment of stillness between the last tender caress of a mighty wave and its falling back into the depths. Having welled up in the deep, driven by the wind from beyond horizons, becoming smooth, shallow, a nail on a fingertip, skimming silently up, expending the last, hanging motionless, weary, releasing tiny, infinitesimally tiny immigrants, and receiving in return exhausted expatriates to rest on a circumnavigation of discovery and revive their spirits in the soporose sediments of the abyss. A voyage beyond the imagination of the crew of the Beagle and every Britannia boasting of ruling the waves, dissolving grain by grain the prayer pressed like cuneiform into the tablet of sand beneath my feet. And every morning I would rise with the sun, stand and face the light, peering across the water as I search for the first long shadows of those who have lived the day now rising before me. I stretch out my arms and fingers to sift the sun for the silhouette of some patient soul who has stood on a distant, now evening shore, pledged and performed the duties of their day with kindness, only to find that the tears of the grateful, having traveled like some quantum hitchhiker on the penumbra of their benefactors, come pouring out of my eyes, and with these I wash my hands of petty and narrow concerns. In this brief moment, with the sun always rising but narrowly peeking over the dawn, I turn toward evening and radiance flows around me, and in my wake, a long shadow, a pledge to perform the duties of the day with kindness, in the hope that it too will bear tears of benevolence and find some patient soul waiting in their mourning, and another, until we all wake and stand, arms reaching out to find the hills and shores of our meridian so crowded that our hands must clasp, and the tears washing over us become a torrent to drown the arrogance. If only I could read the morning like a painter.
So how many of you are going to the Allen Day community reading now? Yes. Mark is a wonderful poet. I discovered him 10 years ago.
Helped me along my way.
All right, we have a couple more readers. Our next reader is another third Thursday regular, Rose.
I always feel so short when I get up here. Okay. Okay, this is an a cappella song that I fixed up today, because that's my jive. child, let it go. I'll sing this song and dance along, put your left in mine. Right step now, 1, 2, 3, don't look down, keep your eyes on me. March in a jig and the markets go to the pig, but the pig runs away 'cause afraid of what they'll say. It doesn't make sense, but it rhymes. Ain't she a little like life? I sing the song and I'll dance along. Put your left in mine. Right step now, 1, 2, 3. Don't look down, keep your eyes on me. So far from perfection, headed in the wrong direction. I kept a learning, writing, singing, hurting. Now we know for certain. But honey, honey, we tried. It wasn't a waste of time. Honey, honey, we cried. But wasn't it worth it for the smile?
That was awesome. Thank you. We encourage singing, dancing, and poetry. All right, I'm going to sneak one poem in before our last reader. This is from my book, Comb by Crows. And I've really been obsessed with organ donation for years. And this is one of the stories I became obsessed with. It's called For the Organ Donor's Widow, Meeting the Man Who Received Her Deceased Husband's Corneas. And there are a couple of facts or epigraphs. Since 2003, Nicole Feldman has visited Texas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, meeting the people whom her husband's organs saved. And on average, 40 to 60 people are saved or have their lives greatly improved from each body donation. So this is kind of her story. Though pained to see her ex's eyes as they meet for lunch in South Philly, they exchange emails, and weeks later, a photo of him and his wife arrives, which the widow sets beside the frame of the Mainer who received the lungs crossing the 5K finishing line in Bangor. 6 months further, she prints the grinning mug sent by the heart recipient's oldest son, who thanks her for the granddad his kids will have. The Christmas after that, fruitcakes still come from the pancreas recipient in Houston, until some warn that denial might inspire all those long-distance minutes to the Milwaukee team who received the marrow and beat the leukemia. But at the baptism for the son of the teamster who received his kidney, the widow feels herself fit so perfectly inside all the hugs freely given, that she imagines herself as a liver or a lung immersed into the warmth new body, and quickly achieving synchrony with the trinity of heart, kidneys, and arteries, as the children to boot call her auntie. Now, without hesitation, she flies to meet the Iowan who received the small intestine, then drives all the way to the Motor City for the liver recipient's 5th year of sobriety. And as for me, I love how it's becoming routine to place this story inside so many minds, where like a pink, perky organ, it reorchestrates our blocked and chaotic body of thoughts to flow in such a way that a healthy, hopeful mind is restored. And I love how sharing this amazing tale doesn't require a PhD and a sleepless residency before transplanting its healing properties into the brains of complete strangers, then sealing it inside with the sutures of these lines. And I love, finally, how her engagement to the kidney recipient's cousin causes pulses to strengthen and faces to flush, until even the most cynical of us is inspired to donate her story to the old curmudgeon of a neighbor or the misanthrope of a co-worker who too walks away with more pep in their step and nights sometimes stares up at the sky to imagine all the harvested organs flying from Syracuse to Duluth, Boise to Austin, and saving so many lives despite all that time between bodies, packed like a cheap six-pack on ice. Our last, you really should read Heart Transplant Stories. Reread Paul Pirzol's book. Our last poet is Drexel. And I don't know if he's going to also sing, but he can do whatever he wants.
I do have two sung poems tonight, and I realize they both have August and birthdays in common. So I'd like to ask my daughter Rose to come up for the first one to help me with that. And maybe she can help me find where I put it.
Did she program your VCR?
VCR, dude, you're
What's a VCR?
You're dating yourself, man. What's that?
I'm from Texas, and I have some southern lullabies in my head. But as I was in the month of August expecting a birthday, my wife about to deliver in the next month, in September, I'm thinking, I don't have a Maine lullaby. And so this is a Maine lullaby. And since we were having a Maine laureate, I decided that Maine needed to be one.
Maine names.
Yeah.
Hush, little baby, my love,
Papa's gonna bring you a morning dove. If that morning dove won't coo, Papa's gonna find you one that do. If that one that does gets free, Papa's gonna bring you a chickadee. If that chickadee's off tune, Papa's gonna find you a laughing loon. If that loon keeps you awake, Papa's gonna guide you off that lake. We'll float on a river and out to sea, Papi and baby and the wind so free. If wind and waves give you a fright, Papi gonna sail toward the harbor light. If that harbor light gets doused, Papi set a course for the old lighthouse. If that light won't shine no more, we'll listen for the sounds of the rocky shore. If that shore should salt your hair, Papi gonna take you to the county fair. If that county fair is town, Papi take you round to the lobster pound. If that lobster meat's too tough, Papi take you home 'cause you had enough. Back home that room's too small, Papi walk you out to the old stone wall. If on that wall you find his lair, Papi help you get that little black bear. If that little black bear gets loose, Papi gonna find you a big brown moose. If that big brown moose turns away, Papi gonna find you a sunny day. If that sunny day has clouds, What are you gonna do?
Papi gonna sing this song out loud. One more that I gotta go look for.
You can hold that one too.
I need the chords and I all right, down to. Okay. Hopefully I don't really need it. So this next song is it's constructed in the form of a letter to a newborn. A friend of mine just had a baby December 28th, and they named it August. August and December. Well, August and December, now there's a song title for you. So that's what set that off. And so in interest of participatory poetry, there's a couple of places where you could come in. So each verse, each letter to the newborn starts off with, Dear August. So you kind of lay into that. Dear August. All right, you've got that. Now, at the very end of the song, there's a number of times when I could use some help, and that is, I'm going to say, celebrate a birthday, and then you've got like da-da-da, and during that da-da-da, I want you to be like making sounds, and if you were at the back of the stage and you were setting the stage for a scene out front, there'd be birthday party noises, things like, hey, give me that back, or, are there any more presents, or that's all there is? Why did they give me this? What else? He pinned the tail on my donkey. He pinned the tail on me, not the donkey. So whatever you can think of, what reminds you of a birthday party. During that, celebrate your birthday, and there'll be a space, and I'll be going da-da-da, and you just say things like that, or make cheers and noises, or birthday sounds, right? So we're ready. Dear August, you were born in December. Ooh, a little dramatic. Dear August, you were born in December, a ray of summer in the middle of the winter. Presents and fireworks frame your day. Perhaps you like it just that way, but if you don't, you can fly away from all the noise. Dear August, too soon you'll get older. As year by year you'll grow a little bolder. And if your birthday party gets the squeeze from all those shopper holiday melodies, you could augment if you please. Yes, you could. Dear August, I'm not sure that you've heard that half your birthdays are by some preferred. And if you choose to sing a half-year tune, we would share a birthday month of June. Yes, we would, if you please. I'd like that. Dear August. What happens next? Dear August, you should claim a whole month. Spread it out instead of all at once. Let's see. Oh, and if those black flies chase you out of June, you could scoot over to a month named after you so long ago. How did they know? You need some room to celebrate a birthday. Make some noise. Celebrate a birthday. Get out the toys.
That's my present.
Celebrate a birthday. Just like you like. Celebrate a birthday today your way.
All right, thank you, Drexel. That was great. He always closes the show beautifully. Yeah, at 6:15, it was just myself, Mark, and Michelle, and we were thinking, wow, this could You know, we have the poet laureate coming here, and it's just us and the help. But you guys showed up, and we appreciate it. So thank you for coming. Julia's going to be here a few more minutes to sell, sign books, talk to you. So come on up, say hello. If you can, buy a book. If not, hey, that's okay. We'll see you next month, okay? Next month, third Thursday, we're going to be celebrating the poet Susan Pelletier. All right, and we're also going to have a great open mic too. All right, we'll see you next month. Thanks. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you. What a beautiful event this is.
Yeah,
Great.
it's starting to get legs. You know, we usually get 20 people. I think we've got about 25, 30, so we're getting there.
Yo, Instagram, we're out of here. Thanks for watching.